Hello, and welcome to Conversations for NFP Week. My name is Peg Hensler, and I'm your host for these conversations. I'm actually the Associate Director for Marriage Ministries and NFP for the Diocese. And I'm so happy to be here today. We are talking about all different NFP, natural family planning related topics to celebrate this wonderful week. And today's topic is the Catholic millennial response, and that is the good, the bad, and the ugly of NFP. This is the real deal with NFP, and it's the millennial response to that. So I'm so happy to welcome today's guest, who is going to provide that millennial perspective, and her name is Janine Garcia. And so welcome, Janine, and if you could just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Janine Garcia. I'm originally from Long Beach, California. I moved to New Jersey about 4 years ago when I married my husband, Ryan. Together, we have a very active 10-month-old son named Pio and another baby on the way. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for about 10 years now. I'm a full-time mama and a part-time night shift nurse.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. And so really kind of want to start with that whole notion of being Catholic and what it means for you to be a Catholic. You know, what it means to be a Catholic mom, to be a Catholic person. Just thinking about the highlights, knowing that in today's culture, there's so few people who are really practicing their faith, and that's across all faith traditions. In fact, the latest statistics show that less than half the people identify with a particular religious tradition. So it's wonderful to speak with somebody who's kind of an insider in the Catholic faith here today. So just a couple highlights of what it's like for you just to be a Catholic wife and a Catholic mom and a Catholic.
In general, I think being a Catholic is such a challenge in today's world. Even harder now that we just got hit with a pandemic and churches are closing and whatnot, and it's so much harder to practice our faith at home. But right now, I'm just, as a full-time mom, as a new mom and a working mom, I'm just focusing on directing my prayers and sacrifices, or finding inspiration within my day-to-day life. I mean, it's so hard to, everyone can say this, it's so hard to incorporate prayer and this and that. And we're always going to have excuses, but the reality is that you just have to make time for it. And if it has to be like a quick prayer during, a quick drive to the grocery store or something, that's what it's going to be. I know. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely wonderful. That's so true. And prayer is that process by which we allow God to be in our lives and by which we communicate with God, because God wants to be in a very deep personal relationship with us, as we know. So that is what's wonderful about being Catholic. That is what's wonderful about being Christian. And but one of the unique things about the Catholic Church is this whole notion of fertility awareness and fertility appreciation. And this is where I think we excel above all other faith traditions. I think this is where we really rock. And so let's talk a little bit about what NFP is. Now, that is natural family planning, responsible parenthood. These are important concepts because in order to be married validly in the church, we know you have to be open to life. And so what does that mean? Well, that means being open to life. That means no contraception. That means being completely countercultural, which has many challenges, which we're going to talk a bit about. But just from the standpoint of a kind of a general idea of what natural family planning is, it really is this wonderful science that allows us, of course, to observe and to chart and to be aware of the different symptoms that are observable that are based on hormonal changes. So we can always know based on our observation process what's happening in our cycle, which is really, really exciting.
Right.
And it was wonderful for my husband and I to learn. We learned the symptothermal method from a couple league years ago, but I understand you're actually training to be a Marquette method practitioner, and that's also an amazing method of NFP. So if you could just share, before we get into the whole Marquette process, just kind of, when did you first hear about natural family planning? When was that something that was introduced to you and you became interested in it?
I think just growing up in youth group, I joined my youth group when I was like 12 years old. I always heard the term NFP thrown around, but I didn't know exactly what it entailed. You just kind of know NFP because you can't use contraception. And and I guess I just thought NFP meant natural means, meant contraceptive means were a no-no, and they were an absolute no-no. But I don't think I knew much about different methods of NFP. And frankly, my husband and I felt as if we were ill prepared in that department going into marriage. We always knew like we were open to life, obviously. Um, but I guess being that we were long distance for our entire dating, relationship, we had to do like a fast track, 1 day or Cliff Notes kind of marriage prep course at a parish that could accommodate us at the time because
Sure.
we didn't see each other often. And to be honest, I felt like we didn't really get much from it. And I'm thinking, where is all the important stuff like NFT, and where's the financial stuff? Like the important stuff that I wanted to hear at a marriage prep course. But instead we got a lot of like icebreaker questions and whatnot, and they're great, but after a while you're just like, okay, let's get serious.
Hey, since I'm in charge of marriage prep, I think your input is really helpful. So thank you very much. This is great. But yes, I understand that. And so you had this kind of basic understanding, and then you, of course, I know that you then went in deeper into that. So can you speak a little bit to that?
I think because as a nurse, I had the basic knowledge and foundation of the reproductive system, and we practice, and I'm going to do air quotes, NFP by means of using like period tracker apps. Like we were using like Flow and Glow and all these like apps, which if you know a little bit about them, they use a very general algorithm to track your period, and they're always under the assumption that a woman ovulates on the 14th day. And that's not true for every woman. It's not true for everybody. And so the first year or so of us being married, we prayed about this and we thought, okay, let's just date each other for a while because we have never dated each other in person, really. So we were using the apps, and obviously like just the general knowledge, we're avoiding the days where I think I'm fertile and I have a regular period. So I'm kind of just following like, okay, like these could be the fertile days. We can avoid these days. And the infertile days like should be okay. So we wanted to enjoy being married the first year or so,
Sure.
before having children. And so when we finally decided, okay, God, we're ready to plan our family, we're ready to settle down, I'm thinking, wait, am I using these apps correctly? I started to actually question my fertility. I was thinking,
Mm,
am I just so good at this, or is there something wrong with me? I was asking questions like, was I actually charting correctly? Am I even ovulating? And then the tough question, and there's a danger to this, was thinking, was there something wrong with me?
mhm.
Am I not able to conceive?
Yep.
And it's tough because during that time, when we were finally trying to get pregnant, medical professionals started telling me that after a year of trying without, conceiving, you're considered infertile. And
Yes.
when I heard that word, it just felt like it was a little heartbreaking because I think growing up around youth group and ministry and around all these great Catholic women having like 10 kids, there's this unspoken, like indirect pressure to get engaged, to get married, and to have a ton of babies. and I hate to say it, but there's this stigma in the Catholic Church that the more kids you have, the more Catholic you are. And that's just absolutely not true. And I think it's absurd. And I think that's coming from a very millennial perspective. It's because
Sure.
we could be open to life. And I think children are, you know, a gift from God and they're great. But I think NFP is also a gift. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like,
I
um,
agree.
so, so
Yeah, right. And so one of the things that we did back in April is we provided the Catholic response to National Infertility Awareness Week, because everything out there was really from the secular perspective. And so we wanted to provide the Catholic response. The story we're sharing is exactly what we found in all of the articles that we looked for. Everyone, yes, it's a very painful struggle. And so then what are kind of the options? And so since the Catholic Church does provide options, it looks like you were proactive and you didn't just sit and wait around. And yes, some couples are going to be infertile, and many of them choose adoption or other ways of being fruitful. But
right.
in your situation, you kind of went a little further and you wanted to learn more about it and see what your options were as a Catholic person who wants to be a mom.
I really think that's the nurse freak in me too. I like to know what's the problem? Like, how can I fix this? And if there's no problem, then that's great, you know? So at the time, we sought help from the Gianna Center. I heard about it from a very, very good friend who was dealing with, you know, a lot of heartbreaks from infertility and miscarriages and a lot.
Sure.
Um, so I looked up the nearest Gianna Center, and it was in Somerset.
Mhm.
So it was about a 40-minute and 1 hour drive for me. And they provide a unique service called NAPRO technology.
Yes.
And this is where it really opened my eyes to natural restorative medicine that's scientific and evidence-based. Um, and it not only seeks to find the root cause to reproductive health concerns like PCOS, endometriosis. These are all very common, but it also seeks to improve your health while respecting fertility, you know, as God intended for us.
Absolutely.
So love the Gianna Center, and I love Dr. Bider from there. That's where I met
Yeah.
Janine.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great. So that's where you realize that the Catholic Church has this amazing science, restorative reproductive technology and medicine, NAPRO, natural procreative technology. And this is a true gift from the Catholic faith. And this has enabled so many people to conceive. So that's kind of
Right.
the beautiful story. And I'm so glad that we're talking about that, because infertility does affect so many couples. But getting back to kind of um, why do you think that we know that natural family planning is not very much embraced in the Catholic Church by couples? We know that it's only a small portion of people who really use NFP. My husband and I used it, loved it. Sometimes we're not perfect in it, so we had to use our sacrament of reconciliation and jump back on the horse, so to speak. But
Right.
we knew what a wonderful gift it was. But now I think because of the health perspective, perhaps we're getting a lot more young people in our pre-Cana events and things who are saying, wait a minute, why have we never heard of this? So
Right.
one of our goals is to introduce these concepts so much earlier. But the other thing is that now that we know people are interested in this, what are some ways that we can really get this out to the couples? And why do you think couples are more inclined to learn about it?
Um, well, first, I want to say that, you know, our world is teaching us that fertility is only a gift when you want children, right? But our world is also teaching us that it's a curse if and when you don't want it. If it's not in your terms, it's not in your plan, you know. And I think we also live in a world where there's a constant push for contraceptive use.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like slapping on a band-aid on common reproductive health concerns. And I've never used contraception, but I think just my experience in my OBGYN office being pregnant last time and this time around, um, you know, all they're really concerned about is prescribing you the best birth control without providing the education. And that was shocking to me because the day after I gave birth to my son, they already assume I was on some type of birth control and I was ready for the script. Not even, and this was a provider that I didn't even know. He didn't see me for my entire pregnancy. He was just the on-call doctor that day who was checking to see, are you okay after giving birth? And he was like, oh, so what birth control should I write up for you? And I said, oh no, I no, thank you. And it's so hard because as a society, I feel like we're really treating fertility like a disease that needs to be medicated.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's like we're not treating fertility as a responsibility. And I think that's an issue. Um,
That's right.
I think that if we actually make NFP education more accessible in office settings and whatnot, I think it'll bring some light um, to the world of NFP. And if we have medical professionals who are advocating for it and who are really out there providing the education and showing like this is evidence based and this is scientific. It's not just some Catholic birth control.
It's not pseudoscience, as one of our couple said. It's
Exactly.
real. It's real. Yes.
It's based on science and it's evidence based. Then more people would be more receptive to it.
Yes. So it's almost like we do have to have, I think you're right, Janine. I think we have to have an educational campaign. And I do think that we need our clergy and all of our wonderful people who are in the medical profession and our well, deacons are clergy, but also all of our pre-Cana team couples. And now we're going to move into this notion of mentoring, where every couple in the diocese will be accompanied through their marriage prep process with a mentor couple. So what we need to do is equip all these people. Plus, we have a mother-daughter initiative where we're trying to introduce these concepts much earlier. So it has to be a multifaceted approach. But you're right, an educational campaign is so important. So we need to be out there. We need people like you who are medical professionals who have the total integrated approach. And I think that people are more open through the health perspective, and then they start embracing what we call the good, which is the moral perspective, how great it is for your marriage, how it allows all those graces to flow to you. You know that strengthens your marriage and helps you get through anything. It enhances communication. Those are all the goods. Now, the bad and the ugly is that it takes commitment. So what would you say to your couples who are going through it and they're saying, wow, this seems like a lot? What would you say to them about developing the habit of NFP?
Um, I this is probably something I just wanted to add from earlier too.
Sure.
But I do believe that young adults and millennials, like myself, nowadays I think we're very intuitive and we're open-minded and we're receptive to new ideas and ways of living. And I think that more and more people are seeking a more natural, holistic, and organic lifestyle. I mean, it's kind of like I like to compare it to like fast food. Like fast food is there. It's fast and it's convenient if you want it. But if you're gonna put in the work and you want, you know, total health and well-being, like you're gonna go exercise and you're gonna go cook your own foods and whatnot. But it's the same thing with NFP. If the education is more readily available and accessible to people, and I think that we can really, really highlight the good things that can come out of NFP. It's not just like I said, it's not Catholic birth control. It's not just trying to avoid. No, people think you only use it to avoid or achieve pregnancy, but no one really knows anything about it. But you could turn it into something so amazing within your family, because you could whatever your desires are in line with God's will and God's plan, like you just hope that, you know, all those things are in line, and NFP is
So
for you.
beautifully, oh, absolutely, so beautifully said, so beautifully said. So we could stay on all day long. This conversation is amazing. You and I will continue our conversations, but for the sake of our audience, we do need to wrap things up. And Janine, unbelievable your perspective on this, unbelievable how proactive you were. And you just summarized everything that we have been doing to create our web pages, everything you talked about. You ran the whole gamut. And so I'm so grateful that we found you. I'm so grateful that you were available to do this.
Okay.
Being a mom and having your baby asleep in upstairs, I think you said, and then waiting for your next baby to come soon, right? When do you do?
I'm due in September.
So that's great. That's so exciting. And so we are so, everyone who sees this will learn something from it. We are so grateful to you. So I just want to say that all of these things, this interview with Janine and all of our other wonderful NFP conversations will be available. Links will be available to them from our main landing page. And that landing page will take you to all the different NFP resources that we have. NFP for couples, NFP for clergy, NFP for medical professionals. We have an infertility page where all the stuff that Janine talked about is mentioned on that page. Gianna Center resources, everything is there. And it's dioceseoftrenton.org/natural-family-planning. And again, Janine, thank you so much. And God bless you.
God bless.
Take care. So long.